I wasn't supposed to be in her apartment that afternoon. I was supposed to drop off her drill, the one I'd borrowed to fix a shelf, and leave before she got back from the studio. That was the plan. Plans are easy to make when you don't know what's waiting on a coffee table. The journal was open, not closed with a pen resting on top the way she usually left it, but open, spine cracked flat, like she'd walked away mid-sentence. I wasn't going to look. I want that on the record. I set the drill down. I turned toward the door, and then my own name did the thing names do when you're not expecting them. It reached out and grabbed me by the collar. Ethan doesn't know. That's the part that scares me. He doesn't know. And if I tell him, I lose the only person who's never made me feel like an inconvenience. I read it twice before I understood I was reading it at all. Then I closed the journal, carefully, the way you'd close a door on a room you weren't invited into. And I didn't say a word. Not that day. Not for 11 more. My name is Ethan Hale. I'm 29. I edit documentaries for a small production company in Seattle, which means I spend most of my life making other people's footage make sense, cutting the parts that don't serve the story, keeping the parts that do. I was good at that. I was less good at doing it to my own life. Maya Lindquist and I had been friends for 6 years, since college, since a ceramics elective I only took because my Tuesday schedule had a hole in it. She restored broken pottery for a living now, antique vases, cracked teapots, museum pieces that had survived centuries, and then one clumsy hand. She used a technique called kintsugi sometimes, filling the cracks with gold instead of hiding them. And she used to tell me that was the whole philosophy of her work. You don't erase what broke. You just make the break part of the object's history instead of its ending. I thought about that sentence a lot over the years. I didn't think about what it might mean for me until I read 4 lines in her handwriting that weren't meant for me. We'd never been a couple. We'd never really tried. There had been a boyfriend of hers in there somewhere. Marcus, briefly, in our 20s, and then, more recently, Derek. Derek was an architect, the kind of man whose apartment looked like a furniture catalog and who complimented Maya's work in the specific, careful way people compliment things they don't actually understand. It's very tactile. He'd say about a bowl she'd spent 3 weeks restoring, and Maya would smile the smile she used when she didn't want to argue. I liked her. Quietly, the way you like something you've decided isn't yours to want. I told myself the closeness between us was just what happened when 2 people spent 6 years showing up for each other. I didn't examine it too hard, because examining it meant admitting there was something there worth naming, and naming things is how you lose them if you get it wrong. So when I read he doesn't know, and if I tell him, I lose the only person who's never made me feel like an inconvenience, I did the only thing my particular kind of coward knows how to do. I closed the book. I said nothing. I went home and didn't sleep and told myself I'd imagined the weight of it. Derek was the reason I didn't say anything sooner, if I'm honest. Not because I was scared of him. Derek wasn't a man you were scared of. He was a man you were tired of. The way you're tired of a song that's fine the first 4 times, but because Maya had built a life that included him, and I didn't think it was my place to walk into that life holding a page she hadn't meant to show me. Derek had a way of making Maya's world smaller without ever raising his voice. He'd gotten a job offer in Chicago that spring, and he talked about it at dinner like it was already decided, already hers to be excited about. You could set up a studio anywhere, he told her once, while I sat 2 feet away pretending to read a menu. Clay doesn't care what city it's in. Maya had laughed. But it was the kind of laugh you give when the alternative is an argument you don't have the energy for. I noticed things after that night in her apartment. I noticed how often Derek scheduled things during her open studio hours. I noticed that he'd stopped coming to her shows the last 2 times. Always some client emergency. Always apologetic, in a tone that didn't quite reach apology. I noticed that when I texted her to ask if she wanted to grab coffee, her replies took longer than they used to, and once she mentioned, almost in passing, that Derek had said our little coffee thing was something she should maybe outgrow. Little coffee thing. 6 years, reduced to 2 words by a man who'd known her for 14 months. I didn't say anything about any of it. That was my pattern, cutting the footage that made things complicated, keeping the story simple. It worked for documentaries. It was failing badly at everything else. The twist, when it came, wasn't dramatic. It came through a phone that wasn't mine. Maya had left her cracked showpiece at my place, a 2-foot ceramic vessel, museum commissioned, due for delivery in 10 days, and hairline fractured after a fall in her studio that she hadn't told Derek about because, in her words, he'd just tell me I should have been more careful. and I already know that. She'd asked to work on the repair at my kitchen table because her studio's ventilation was down for repairs and the gold lacquer needed airflow. We'd been at it 3 nights straight when her phone buzzed on the counter and the screen lit up long enough for me to see it wasn't a text. It was an email draft, auto-saved, visible in the notification preview. Subject, Chicago, let's just tell her it's decided. It wasn't addressed to Maya. It was addressed to Derek's sister, and the notification cut off there, but I didn't need the rest. Maya saw my face before she saw the screen, and when she picked up the phone and read it herself, she went very still in a way I'd learned. Over 6 years meant she was holding something together with both hands. He's been talking to his sister about the move, she said. Like it's already real. Like I'm a detail to be managed. I didn't say I told you so, because I hadn't told her anything. That was the whole problem. I set down the fine brush I'd been using on the vessel's fracture line, gold lacquer catching the kitchen light, and I said the only true thing I had. You don't have to decide about him tonight, but you should decide it's your decision, not his sister's, not mine. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding whether to say something else. Then she picked the brush back up, and we kept working. And that was its own kind of answer, not a confession, not a confrontation, just 2 people choosing, again, to fix something together instead of falling apart separately. That was how the next 4 days went. Not speeches, not ultimatums, just the vessel between us, cracked and gold-seamed, growing whole again one careful pass at a time, while somewhere in the background Derek's texts arrived and went unanswered longer and longer. We finished the repair at 2 in the morning on the 5th night. Maya held it up to the light, turning it slowly, the gold seams running like small rivers across the surface where it had broken. It's better now, she said. Is that strange? It's better than it was before it cracked. That's the whole philosophy, I said. You told me that. Years ago. I know what I told you. She set the vessel down, gently, and didn't look away from it. I've been trying to live by it and failing. The kitchen was quiet except for the tap running somewhere upstairs in the building, some other life going on above ours. I could have said something then. I wanted to. The distance between us had narrowed to almost nothing. She was close enough that I could see the small line of dried gold lacquer on her wrist, close enough that 6 years of careful distance suddenly felt like the strangest choice I'd ever made. Maya. My voice came out rougher than I meant it to. I read your journal. That day, I dropped off the drill. It was open. I saw my name and I read 4 lines before I understood what I was doing. She went pale, then very still. What did it say? I could have lied. I could have softened it. I didn't. That you were scared to tell me something because you thought you'd lose me if you did. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. You've known for 11 days. Yes, and you said nothing. I didn't think it was mine to bring up. I still don't, really. I just didn't want it to be a secret between us anymore. Even a small one. I looked at her steadily. I'm not asking you to say anything back. I just didn't want to keep being the last person who knew, when everyone in that sentence was already me. Her mouth trembled once before she controlled it. I meant it. Every word. I know. Do you feel the same way? There it was. The question I'd been editing out of my own life for 6 years. I wanted to answer it right there, standing 2 feet from her at 2 in the morning with gold lacquer drying on both our hands. I wanted to. I didn't. I do, I said. But I'm not going to say more than that tonight. You just found out the man you've been building a life with has been planning your future without you in the room. I'm not going to be the thing you reach for because the ground moved. If this is real, it can wait until you're standing on your own 2 feet again. She almost smiled through it. You're doing the thing where you're careful. I'm doing the thing where I don't want to be someone you regret. Ask me again, she said quietly. Later, when it's just about us and not about the mess. I will. I left that night without kissing her, which felt like the hardest right decision I'd ever made. But I'd watched enough broken things get rushed back together badly to know that some cracks need the full cure time before you can trust the seam. Maya ended things with Derek 4 days later. I wasn't there for it, and I didn't ask for details beyond what she wanted to give me, which was 1 sentence. He tried to make it about my instability. I let him finish the sentence, and then I told him the only thing that had ever been unstable was building a life around someone who talked about me instead of to me. She said it without cruelty. That mattered to me. More than I expected. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to be free. For 3 weeks after that, we didn't talk about the journal again. We went back to the rhythm we'd always had: coffee on Sundays. her dropping off broken things she wanted my opinion on, even though I knew nothing about pottery, me sending her rough cuts of documentary footage because she noticed things other people missed. It didn't feel like waiting. It felt like two people letting a repair finish curing before anyone tested its weight. She showed her restored vessel at a small gallery downtown in October. I went, obviously. I stood near the back while people who understood the craft far better than I did admired the gold seams running through the ceramic like small, deliberate rivers. Maya found me near the end of the night, 2 glasses of wine in hand, and said, without preamble, "Ask me again." The gallery noise fell away the way it does in the moments that matter. "Maya Lindquist," I said, "I've spent 6 years editing you out of every sentence where I say what I actually feel. I don't want to do that anymore. I think I've loved you since before I understood what the word cost." She didn't cry, though her eyes were bright. "That," she said, "is the least careful thing you've ever said to me. I'm allowed one uncareful thing a decade. Good. Use it well." Then she kissed me, in a gallery full of strangers, in front of a vessel that had once been broken and was now, by every measure that mattered, more valuable for having been repaired in the open instead of hidden. We didn't rush anything after that either. That wasn't who we were. We took 8 months before we moved in together, and even then, it wasn't dramatic. Her kiln arrived on a Tuesday, my bookshelves the following weekend, and we spent an entire Saturday arguing cheerfully about whose coffee mugs deserved the good cabinet. A year in, I found her journal open again, not by accident this time. She'd left it that way on purpose. A page turned toward the light, my name at the top of it again. "Ethan knows everything now. That's the part that used to scare me. Turns out it's the part that made it safe." I didn't close it and walk away this time. I picked up the pen resting beside it, and underneath her line, I wrote one of my own, the only closing worth having. I read it out loud this time. That's the difference. Some things you patch quietly and hope no one notices the seam. Others you fill with gold on purpose, so the break becomes part of the story instead of the end of it. Maya taught me that with clay first, and then, without either of us quite planning it, with everything else. What would you have done if you found someone's journal open to a page about you, and every line made you rethink 6 years of staying quiet? And have you ever waited too long to say something true because you were afraid of what it might cost you? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.